happening? Happy Friday to everybody out there. Best day of the work week for many of you. This is Everything Pats, a New England Patriots podcast. We've got some subtractions to talk about. We've got a couple of additions to talk about, and we have a lot more than just that. But let's begin with David Andrews. David Andrews deserves the respect to start this podcast out, this live stream out today. A truly great Patriot, an elite, and I mean an elite, undrafted free agent. Not many undrafted free agents make the league, let alone have the kind of career that Andrews had with the Patriots. Super Bowl champion, leader of this team in so many different ways, really good on the football field. Shout out to David Andrews, who goes down as one of the best Patriots of the past decade. I know he's a center. He's an offensive lineman. I feel like people appreciate the offensive line a little bit more now after the past couple of years. But shout out to David Andrews, who was released yesterday. Now, why was David Andrews released? A couple of reasons. I would have to imagine I have not talked to anybody at Gillette Stadium. Nobody has texted me. Nobody has called me. But I have to imagine that part of the reason is the fact that Andrews is going to be 33 years old in July. He's coming off a shoulder surgery that certainly seemed like it was extensive. So I'm sure there's concern about whether or not he'll be able to play football ever again. We might wonder, was he going to be ready? Would he be ready for camp? Would he be ready for the preseason? What if you keep him on the roster and he's not going to be ready and you've got to move on? So I think there are a number of reasons why David Andrews is no longer a New England Patriot. But there are a couple of things that bother me about this. I've got two big problems with the release of David Andrews. The first problem I have is with timing. The eval is the eval. If the Patriots, if Mike Vrabel feels like David Andrews can't do the job anymore, whether that's because of age or injury or both, okay, I get it. If you don't feel like he's the right guy on the field for you, if you don't think he has anything left in the tank and you want to move on, then that is your prerogative. It is a business. You do things sometimes that seem cold-blooded. I have no issue with that. The eval is the eval. Maybe the eval will be wrong, but I have no issue with releasing the football player David Andrews if you don't believe that he can be a starting center, backup center, if you don't believe that he can help you. I don't have much of an issue with that. But I have a major issue with the timing. Number one, the Patriots reportedly knew that Andrews was going to be gone before free agency hit. We've seen this happen before in the NFL. A lot of times when a veteran is going to be released, the team will release that veteran early so they can get a jump on free agency, so they can talk to teams who might be looking for players at their position. You try to angle yourself that way the first day of free agency. You can get signed, or maybe even before the first day of free agency. So if the Patriots knew before free agency began that they were going to get rid of David Andrews, then why not just get rid of him before free agency, the ultimate respect to a veteran? I don't understand why they did not do that. You could also question whether or not it's right to not even give Andrews an opportunity to earn a job. He has certainly done everything right here in New England as a Patriot. His level of play last year did not fall off a cliff. So you could certainly bring him to camp, see if he's healthy, throw him out there, see what he looks like, and maybe, just maybe, he ends up being your best center on the roster. You don't know, but you could have given him a shot. You could have kept him on the roster and given him a shot. It's not like you're saving tens of millions of dollars on the cap by releasing Andrews yesterday. An even bigger issue to me when we talk about the timing of releasing Andrews is the fact that on a day that you were introducing all of these new names, and I'll get to those new names a little later, right? And I thought those guys did a tremendous job at the podium yesterday. But on the day that you're introducing all of these new Patriots, you also announced the release of Andrews, and I hate that. I hate that with the heat of 1,000 burning suns. Because what happened yesterday was Andrews became a footnote, and he should not have been a footnote. He was rushed into the quote-unquote presentation yesterday by Robert Kraft. Mike Vrabel was asked about the release, and he was able to dodge the question from Phil Perry and instead say, we're looking forward. I want to talk about the guys that are here today. That's a nice little game to play, right? If you release Andrews on the day that you're introducing all of these new players, if you're asked a question that's going to make somebody uncomfortable like Vrabel was by Phil Perry, then you can kind of skirt that question quickly and just say, well, we're paying attention to the guys here today. We're having the introductory press conference. So, it's about these guys. And that's not the way to handle it to me. David Andrews deserved a heck of a lot more from the football team. He deserved a heck of a lot more as far as the timing goes. To release him on the same day that you're introducing Morgan Moses and Robert Spillane and Milton Williams and Carlton Davis, to release him on the same day is ridiculous because he was an afterthought. And for what he gave to this program, he should have not been an afterthought. Somebody at that facility, in Gillette Stadium, in the front office, at the ownership level, somebody should have raised their hand and said, guys, we should not. We should not be releasing David Andrews on the same day that we're introducing everybody else. We should give him his own day. Whether that was Wednesday, whether that was today, we should give David Andrews the respect that he deserves and give him his own day. I'm not saying to bring him in and build a statue for him. I'm just saying announce his release on a day when you're not doing other stuff. You could have done it today. I know Mac Hollins got introduced, but come on. Kairos Tonga and Mac Hollins are not the guys that you were introducing yesterday. So I thought the timing was ridiculous. I thought it was absolutely inexcusable. The second issue that I have with David Andrews getting released is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do at center? Now, you've got Ben Brown. Today, the Patriots ended up signing Wes Schweitzer, who we'll get into a little bit later. He's a very versatile interior offensive lineman. But what is your plan? Is there a clear upgrade? Is Ben Brown a clear upgrade right now over David Andrews? I don't know that. Brown did a good job, especially given the circumstances last year. But I wouldn't sit there and say that Brown is a clear upgrade over Andrews. Schweitzer is not a clear upgrade over Andrews. So when you're looking at the offensive line and you're still trying to figure out left tackle, you still might be trying to figure out left guard. And then you wave goodbye to David Andrews, who was one of your best offensive linemen. So it's very questionable. It's very questionable. And I see let's go, talking about Cole Strange at center. Look, maybe Cole Strange ends up being the center, but people that pay attention to the offensive line and watch that game against Buffalo last year when Cole Strange got a shot, Cole Strange got beat up by the Buffalo backups. So I'm not sitting here telling you Cole Strange is going to play any position on the offensive line. He might not make the team. He might. But do you take Cole Strange as a guarantee? I don't. So why not keep Andrews on the roster, bring him to camp, see if he's healthy, and throw him up against everybody else, and he might end up being the best center that you have. Now, of course, they still have time to make a trade. They still have time to sign somebody. And as a matter of fact, the Patriots apparently just signed someone. According to Tom Pelissero, this is breaking news. The Patriots have added veteran safety Marcus Epps. It's a one-year deal worth up to $4.4 million. He's coming off a torn ACL. He's expected to be cleared well before training camp, according to Pelissero. So Marcus Epps is signing with the Patriots. And that's an interesting move because he's obviously, as I just mentioned, he's a safety. And, you're looking at safety and you're wondering what the Patriots are going to do because we found out from Mike Reese that Jalen Hawkins is coming back. So it looked like the Patriots were just going to roll everybody back at safety. Peppers, Duggar, Hawkins, Pettis, maybe Marte Mapu. But they are signing Marcus Epps. He's 29 years old. He was with the Eagles. He started with the Vikings in 2019. He spent 4 years with the Eagles. He spent a couple of years with the Raiders going back to 2023. So obviously there is the Josh McDaniels link. Josh McDaniels was with the Raiders in 2023. So McDaniels obviously knows Marcus Epps. So Marcus Epps is coming in 3 interceptions on his career, 294 tackles. And trying to figure out, because I don't know a ton about Marcus Epps. I know the name. But in 2023, he started all 17 games for Josh McDaniels. Josh didn't last the entire season, but he started every single game in McDaniels' last year at Vegas. He signed a 2-year deal in 2023. He recorded 66 tackles, 3 passes defensed, a forced fumble, and a recovery. He ended up tearing his ACL in week 3 of last season, so he should be back well before they kick the football off in September. If you go on the schedule of Kendrick Bourne, Kendrick Bourne was injured in October. He came back the following October. So if Epps blew out his ACL week 3, then obviously he should be ready. Certainly he should be ready for around the beginning of the season, if not earlier than that. I'm trying to figure out if Marcus Epps is more of a free safety than a strong safety. Because if he's a free safety and he's rangy, then it makes a lot of sense, that signing, because again, you've got Duggar and Peppers as more of the in the box type of safeties, right? So I'm trying to figure out if he's a rangy safety or if he's a more in the box guy doing this on the fly. But they added their safety room. Epps was a starter last year before he tore his ACL. This obviously opens up some opportunities. And whether or not that means Jabril Peppers could be gone, Kyle Duggar could be gone. Danny Stanford is telling me he's a box guy. And I'm looking it up, and it does look like he's more of a strong safety than he is a free safety. So, if they're bringing in somebody who can play the strong safety position, if he's more of an in-the-box type, then you do wonder what this means for the future of Jabril Peppers and Kyle Duggar, right? Or Kyle Duggar. Mark Daniels calls him a free safety. So Mark Daniels is saying he's more of a free safety than strong safety. I'm waiting to see if Evan Lazar or somebody else, because, again, I'm not sitting there breaking film down of Marcus Epps. So if he's a free safety, then it makes sense. If he's a free safety, then you keep Peppers, you keep Duggar. Those guys are more in-the-box options, and Marcus Epps would be, if he's healthy, the free safety that can make some plays. If he's a strong safety, then you have to wonder whether or not this means the end of Peppers or Duggar's tenure here in New England. So we'll see. It's not easy to find. It's not easy to find whether or not a safety is a strong safety or a free safety, apparently, online, because I'm looking. Let me pull up the Our Lads depth chart and see what they had. Let's see. Of course, he was hurt, so they just have him labeled as a safety, of course. So Danny says Pro Football Focus would suggest he's a much better box player than a free safety. I'm guessing you're looking at the grades as far as coverage and stuff. He was hurt last year, so Our Lad's going to do absolutely nothing for me. So, look, they added a safety. What that means, how they see him, how they see him fitting in this defense, we'll see. If he's an in-the-box guy, then I think Duggar or Peppers could be in trouble. If they see him as a free safety, then I would say that he could still fit with those two other guys. Trying to pull up his 2023 grades, because obviously he played a couple of games last year and that was it. So let me see what they have to say. Marcus Epps finished the 2023 season with the second highest grade in the safety room, 65.4 of a grade. His pass rush grade was under 60. His coverage grade was 62.3, and his run defense grade was near 70, which is why Danny says his numbers would seem like they would make him a strong safety. So we'll see. We'll see how he fits into the safety room. but the Patriots have signed Marcus Epps, former Raider, former Viking. We'll see how he fits into the room, and we'll see how he recovers from the ACL. Sometimes guys aren't the same. I mean, when we talked about Harold Landry, we talked about the idea of, him not being the same guy even 2 years removed. So, again, Marcus Epps, New England Patriot, played for the Vikings in 2019, played for the Eagles 2019 to 2022, played for the Raiders the last 2 years, McDaniels in 2023 before McDaniels was let go as the Raiders head coach. We'll see how he fits along with the others. Andrew Callahan just tweeted about Epps, says he became a full-time starter for the Eagles in 2022. He was obviously a full-time starter for the Raiders the past 2 seasons. He set career highs in 2022 with the Eagles with 94 tackles and 6 pass breakups. He has 3 career interceptions in 6 seasons, so he's not a ball hawk by any means. But this is somebody who started. This is somebody who started for 3 straight years before he got injured week 3 of last season. So we are talking about a guy who is, somebody who was a worthwhile starting safety in the NFL for 3 years running before the injury. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle Kyle Duggar and how they handle Jabril Peppers moving forward. Because, again, they're bringing back Jalen Hawkins, and Jalen Hawkins is also another kind of in-the-box safety guy. So it sounds like they got a bunch of strong safety in-the-box type players. How they're going to fit each of them side by side, I have no idea. Back to David Andrews quickly, though. Again, right now it's another hole in the offensive line. And, you hope that they would be able to 100% be able to find an upgrade over Andrews, because if they don't, then you've got issues. You've got big-time issues at center. And to me, the Patriots are in no spot, as I plug my computer into charge, the Patriots are in no spot to be getting worse on the offensive line at positions. You already got to figure out the left tackle. You already got to figure out the left guard. And now you got to figure out center. So not a big fan of the David Andrews release on multiple levels. All right, we got a lot more to get to. Don't forget, as I always say, to help us out, help a brother out, build the community. Let's drive this algorithm. We can do it in a couple of ways. Hit that thumbs up button on the YouTube as you're watching. Click that thumbs up. Like this live stream. That helps us with the algorithm. Throw a comment in. I see a lot of you commenting. Keep throwing those comments in there as well. Like, comment, and subscribe. We are now at about 6,300 subscriptions. We're trying to hit 6,500 by draft night. So we are just over 200 away from hitting our subscriber goal by the first night of the draft, which again is 6,500. So don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe. All right, before I get to more, Backyard Cyclist jumps in with a $10 super chat. Not getting the warm and fuzzies, Nick. First standout misstep, in my opinion, was releasing Andrews. Makes 0 sense. 0. Happy Friday. I'll put it this way. Again, they can upgrade. They can certainly upgrade. They can bring in another center. Maybe it's Garrett Bradbury. Maybe it's somebody else. Maybe that person will end up being better than David Andrews. But until you get that person in town, until you get that person in the facility, then why not just hold on to David Andrews and see how his rehab goes and see if he's capable of playing football? It doesn't hurt to keep him on the roster. It doesn't hurt if he's in a competition. If you get an obvious upgrade, you can release him like you released him yesterday. And in the timing of it, people might say, oh, well, they released him to give him a break so he can go sign with somebody else. Well, then you should have just released him before free agency began, because you reportedly thought he was not going to be on this roster anyway. So it doesn't make much sense to me. I hate the timing, and it just leaves you with an unnecessary hole at the starting center spot, unless the team evaluates Ben Brown and thinks Ben Brown could be that guy. But again, I like the idea. I love the idea of having competition at camp. So it is what it is. I've said my piece on David Andrews. Let's get to Cooper Kupp. The latest on Cooper Kupp. Andrew Callahan, Jeff Howe, Mike Giardi, a lot of people have been reporting on Cooper Kupp. Karen Guregian also reporting on Cooper Kupp. Look, his market, from what everybody is saying, is around $12 million a year. but that would be for a contender. He's willing to sign for $12 million a year with a contender. It sounds like the Patriots could have a legitimate shot at Cooper Kupp if they were willing to pay him $15 million a year. Andrew Callahan reported that Cooper Kupp has talked to people close to him about living in New England. Should he live in Providence? Should he live in Boston if he signed with the Patriots? How was it like playing with the Patriots or for the Patriots? Obviously, I'm sure he reached out to Kendrick Bourne because he's friends with Kendrick Bourne. They played in college together. So Cooper Kupp has been having conversations, trying to figure out what it would be like to live in New England and play for the New England Patriots. So there's at least some level of interest, but he wants to get paid more. If he's going to go to the Seattle Seahawks or another team that has a better shot at making the playoffs, he'll sign for less. If he comes to the Patriots, he wants to sign for more. And so I think he's waiting to see if the Patriots are willing to get a little bit, quote unquote, silly with some of the money. And if they don't, then he'll just move on to the Broncos or the Saints have been mentioned. I don't get the Saints thing. The Saints aren't great at football. The Seahawks make sense on the West Coast. He could stay out there. So if I were the Patriots, I would absolutely pay Cooper Kupp $15 million a year. I'd give him a 2-year deal, $15 million a year on the base. I try to figure out, though, as we say base, I mean, up to $15 million. You can play some funny money. There's no doubt about it. You can play games with the money. But I would say, hey, look, Cooper, if you sign with us, we'll give you the opportunity to make $15 million a year. Now, why? I know we've talked about it. I don't want to sit here and spend a ton of time on Cooper Kupp because we talked about him on Wednesday. But the reason why I would sign him is a bird in the hand. A bird in the hand in the wide receiver room. And we could sit there and we could talk about, well, if they don't sign Cooper Kupp, then maybe they can get this guy. Maybe they can draft this guy. Maybe they can trade for this guy. It's all maybe, 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 maybe. You have the opportunity to sign Cooper Kupp. If you do have that opportunity, if he's willing to come here, and from everything we've heard, he would be willing to come here if they paid him the money, then I would pay him the money because you got a bird in hand in the wide receiver room. He's better than any receiver you have right now. And I know there's some, you can sit there and you can argue about Pop Douglas, but they're different receivers. I know there's some, talk about his analytics. And yes, there are some analytics that make him look like he's god-awful. He's on the decline. Nobody would debate whether or not Cooper Kupp is declining. But he's great in the room, football IQ off the charts. He's still productive when he plays. You might get him for 12 or 13 games, but he's still productive. He's better than pretty much anything you have in that room right now. And if you continue to not, get ultra aggressive with some of these guys, what's going to end up happening is that you're going to be left with the draft again, or hoping that somebody asks out like A.J. Brown or T. Higgins. And so I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if T. Higgins is going to eventually be dealt by Cincinnati. I don't know if A.J. Brown is going to randomly ask out of Philly. So you've got to handle it right now. And if you can add Cooper Kupp right now to the wide receiver room, you're helping your young quarterback. So I would do it. I mean, you were willing to overpay Chris Godwin. You were willing to overpay the defensive signings that you brought in, right? And I don't have a problem with overpaying people. We've talked about it. You need to overpay when you're coming off, back-to-back 4-win seasons. But you were willing to overpay Godwin. You offered him reportedly a bunch of money, and he said no. You were willing to overpay Milton Williams. You were willing to overpay Harold Landry. You overpaid multiple guys already this offseason, but you're drawing the line with Cooper Kupp. I don't get it. It's one of the main priorities of this offseason is to find wide receivers, and not just a one. You need a 1 and a 2. Unless you believe in, Chaisson Boutte or Jalen Polk or Javon Baker. And I'm not giving any of those guys, frankly, the benefit of the doubt. Maybe Kendrick Bourne, maybe. Possibly. But I think bringing in Cooper Kupp helps you as a football team on the field and off the field. And I don't understand if you're willing to give them, 10, 11, 12 million, but you're not willing to give them 14 or 15 million. Like, what are we doing here? I would sign him. Seems like he'd be the perfect fit. Culture fit, leadership fit. He has connections to the staff, so you have intel on him with Thomas Brown, who was in LA. So you have Kendrick Bourne. So I would be offering Cooper Kupp the $15 million a year. That's what I would be doing. I would get Drake May some help in the building. And maybe you get more help, maybe you get better help, but I would go out and get somebody right now if you have the opportunity to help your young quarterback. Because you could be waiting forever to find a guy. You went through last offseason, you didn't get Ridley, you didn't get Ayuk, you tried to go through the draft, that didn't work out. So if somebody is there like Cooper Kupp and is willing to come to New England and you got to pay him a little bit more money, yes, I know the risk. He's probably going to play 12 games. He's on the decline, et cetera, but he's still a good football player. He's still very smart, and he's still excellent in the room. So I'd do it. I would do it. All right, more news from the last 48 hours. We talked about David Andrews. Two other leaders of this team for the last several years have left. Dietrich Wise, Jonathan Jones, they both go to Washington. We're talking about leaders. We're talking about character. We're talking about guys who won a lot of football games here with the Patriots. We're talking about two guys that also produced on the field. Jonathan Jones saved this team a lot, being able to be cornerback too. So shout out to Wise. Shout out to Jonathan Jones. Shout out to David Andrews. Mike Vrabel, obviously bringing in different guys, and that's what pretty much everybody does. So I'm not surprised. I don't think any of us are surprised that Wise is gone. Jonathan Jones is gone. I think you could be somewhat surprised about Andrews, but those guys are moving on. So I wish them well. They did a fantastic job being Patriots here. Obviously, from the press conference yesterday, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes, Mike Vrabel has brought in a lot of character. So you have guys. You have guys that should be capable of filling the void that is felt from Wise, Jones, and Andrews as far as leadership and character go. Also, we talked about Jalen Hawkins, but the Patriots made another signing. Chaisson, who's like my new favorite name on the Patriots, replacing Sione Takitaki. Chaisson signed a 1-year deal with the Pats. He's going to play right defensive edge. If you want to envision a player, and I'm not saying he's going to play like this guy as far as productivity, and he's going to do everything like this guy, but if you want to envision who Chaisson is on the field, envision Josh Uche. He's that type of pin the ears back, get after the quarterback, pass rusher. So now you've got Harold Landry. I think you're going to keep Anthony Jennings. We'll see. But right now, the way I look at this is you've got on one end, Harold Landry. On the other end, you have Anthony Jennings. And then you have Chaisson as your, sub-rotational pass rusher. That's how I think the pieces will fit. And I would not say the Patriots are now going to stay away from edge in the draft. I still think you could draft an edge because that position is very deep in this year's draft. So the way I would like to see it play out is you've got Landry, you've got Jennings, and then Chaisson fills that rotational substitute pass rusher role, right? And then you draft a young guy, and that young guy is, fourth on your depth chart, and he's developing under Landry and Jennings and Chaisson. That's what I hope they do. That's what I hope they do at defensive end. But you needed another body. We talked about maybe Azeez Ojulari. The Patriots instead signed Chaisson to a 1-year deal. And, for people that might be worried about the fit of Chaisson because of what you saw from Uche, his final few years, Mike Vrabel's defense is different than Belichick's. It's different than DeMarcus Covington's. Mike Vrabel and Terrell Williams are going to ask their edge guys to get after the quarterback. Uche would have been a better fit, frankly. Uche would have been a much better fit under Vrabel and Williams than he was under Bill Belichick. So I think that's how those pieces fit. moving forward. And shout out to Darren Clark on Twitter who replied to me. Pro Football Focus has Chaisson as the 26th best pass rush grade among edges last year. So he was a top 30 edge rusher according to Pro Football Focus last year. And he's going to be 26 years old, so he still has plenty of juice left in the tank. He's a former first-round pick, so he has the talent and the athleticism to be drafted in the first round. He was drafted by Doug Marrone, so there's that connection. So you're bringing in a former first-round pick who had, a good amount of potential as an athletic pass rusher. He really hit his groove last year towards the end of the season with the Raiders. Malcolm Kuntz got hurt, and Chaisson's role grew, and he had played some of his best football towards the end of the 2024 season. I mean, it's really looking like the Raiders defense, right? I mean, Josh McDaniels is the offensive coordinator, but you're bringing in a bunch of guys who played for Josh McDaniels in Vegas and Oakland. Chaisson, I believe, just got there. But you look at like Spillane, Raider. They just signed Marcus Epps. We talked about the safety, Raider. They're bringing in Chaisson, Raider. But he has that link with Doug Marrone, who drafted him down in Jacksonville. So I love the pickup. I think he can help you, and he builds depth at a position of need. So I really like that signing. And then earlier today, we found out that the Patriots added to their offensive line. They signed Wes Schweitzer, who is an interior offensive lineman. So now you got depth there, right? Schweitzer has played left guard. He has played right guard. And he also played for a handful of games. He played center for Washington a couple of years ago. So Wes Schweitzer is somebody who can plug all three of those interior offensive line positions. If you remember my offseason plan on the offensive side, I had Brady Christensen down. This is really the Brady Christensen role. Somebody who can move along. Now, Christensen played all 5 line positions, but Schweitzer is interior offensive line versatility, which is smart. It's something the Patriots needed to do. I hope he's not their starting left guard. I hope he's not their starting center. If he is their backup guy that can play all 3 of those spots, then it's a smart signing. And he also obviously has links to the staff. Again, this is a theme of this offseason, as we said it was going to be months ago. You look at Schweitzer, he played for the Jets. So Todd Downing, your wide receivers coach, was with the Jets last year. Tony Dews, your running backs coach, was with the Jets last year. So they have some familiarity with Schweitzer. One more thing I want to highlight that I forgot about the Chaisson signing before we move on is the fact that you can now, if you want to, devote Keion White to the inside. You don't feel any pressure playing Keion White on the edge because you've got Landry, you've got Jennings, you've got Chaisson. Again, I'd like to see them draft somebody as well in a month and a half. And you don't have to move Keion White around, right? You can stick him on the interior if you'd like and use him as a sub pass rusher. We don't know about Christian Barmore. If Barmore can't come back or he's limited, then you have Keion White who can play that position. And White, Taylor Kyles posted this the other day. White's role has him play all over the defensive front, but Keion White has been incredibly efficient as an interior pass rusher. He's been really good. When you look at the highest pressure rate when playing inside the tackle, last year, Keion White was number 1 in pressure percentage out of guys with a minimum of 100 snaps. Milton Williams was behind Keion White. So Keion White, when aligned inside the tackle, minimum 100 pass rush snaps, was number 1 in the league in pressure percentage with 17.2%. Milton Williams was number 2 at 14%. Keion White, by the way, had an 18.1% pass rush win rate from inside the tackles, which was 3rd best in the NFL. So you see what they're doing. Harold Landry, you've got Caleb Chaisson, Anthony Jennings is not necessarily a pass rush extraordinaire, but you've got a couple of guys in Chaisson and Landry that can get after the quarterback. I think you draft another guy who can get after the quarterback. And then inside you have Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, and Keon White. All guys that can pressure from the interior and push the middle of that pocket and push that center and those guards back. This is going to be a very aggressive, attacking, pass-rushing defensive front. I love what they're doing with the defensive line. I love what they're doing. All right, we still have a couple of more things I want to talk about before I bid you adieu on this Friday. But don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe. Likes and comments help us with the algorithm. We're trying to hit 6,500 subscribers by the first night of the draft. We are just over 200 away from hitting our goal. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy what we do here on the Everything Pats podcast. All right, before I get to some final thoughts, I want to talk about that press conference yesterday. Derek Irish sends a $5 super chat. Do you think Andrews failed a physical for them to release him now? Any centers in the draft that you like? So let's first start with the idea of David Andrews failing a physical. I don't think anybody would be shocked if David Andrews failed a physical because he's coming off of a surgery. He's coming off of a major shoulder injury. I would not anticipate David Andrews of being capable of passing, frankly, a physical right now. So if I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, well, we're a little concerned about, David Andrews and, he might not be ready to play. And they could have waited. They could have waited. They could have given him a physical much later in the process. I think they just wanted to release him. And I don't know why. There could be something that we don't know about, obviously. But I don't know why they did it. Thank you for the $5 super chat, Derek. It is very much appreciated. As far as the centers, by the way, in the draft, one name I will give you is Drew Kendall. And Drew Kendall tested pretty well at the combine, and he played for Boston College. So why do I bring up Kendall? Because obviously Doug Marrone was at Boston College last year with Bill O'Brien. Mike Vrabel, very close with Bill O'Brien. Marrone, very close with Bill O'Brien as well. So I would not be surprised if the Patriots were interested in Kendall, center in this year's draft, because of those connections. As we've seen, connections are very important. By the way, Jeremy Fowler of ESPN reporting that the Seahawks have been firmly in the mix for Cooper Kupp as teams await his free agency plans. Seattle has attempted to sell Kupp on a vision for his next NFL chapter. Kupp has been in touch with members of the organization. I would not be surprised if Cooper Kupp ends up with the Seahawks. I believe I brought them up on Wednesday. They need a receiver. They obviously released Tyler Lockett. They traded DK Metcalf. They're on the West Coast. So it would make a lot of sense if Cooper Kupp stays on the West Coast and goes to Seattle. All right, I have some thoughts about the press conference yesterday. First of all, Morgan Moses. In Moses, we trust. Morgan Moses was unbelievable in that press conference yesterday. Oozing leadership. I was incredibly impressed by Moses and what he had to say. Clear leader of men, conviction in his words, the sage veteran presence. I don't know. You watched that press conference yesterday. I don't know how you're not just blown back by Morgan Moses and some of the stuff he said. My favorite quote from Morgan Moses yesterday was when he said, "You don't need a miracle to win football games. You just need the right guys in the building." And he talked about Drake May and working with Drake May. And he just was absolutely tremendous. He visited Patriots Unfiltered, that podcast, after the press conference. He was tremendous with those guys. Morgan Moses, man. I mean, you want to talk about character. You want to talk about culture. You want to talk about leader. You saw it with Morgan Moses yesterday. Go sign Cam Robinson. Sign Cam Robinson and put Cam Robinson's locker right next to Morgan Moses. If Robinson can't figure things out, with a locker next to Morgan Moses, Robinson will never figure things out. But I would sign Cam Robinson. I would say he could be a solution at left tackle, and I would put him right next to Moses in that locker room. And I would tell Morgan Moses, go to work on this guy. See if you can get him figured out. See if you can get him fully with the program. Another note from the press conference, Mike Vrabel was 100% a pull in free agency. 100% a pull. Moses said, quote, when you've got a guy like Coach Vrabel, you don't need a pitch, unquote. He talked about Vrabel working with linemen and seeing Vrabel with the pads working with linemen and said, when you got a leader of men who's willing to step aside and put himself on the line for the good of the team, it's an easy decision. Robert Spillane spoke of Vrabel and said, I've known Coach Vrabel from a young age, from high school. When you get around a guy like Coach Vrabel, you feel that intensity. You feel that passion. So, yes, Mike Vrabel is one of the reasons why these guys decided to sign with the Patriots. Now, I'm not naive. Money also helps. But these guys believe in Vrabel. They believe Vrabel's going to build the program in the right way, and I believe that Vrabel's going to build this program. And you heard that yesterday. Something that Vrabel said that stood out to me yesterday was, we want guys who want to be here. And I want you to throw into the comments who I thought of. Who did I think of when Mike Vrabel said that? Recently, this offseason, when Vrabel said, we want guys who want to be here, I immediately thought of one dude and said, that is a message. That is a message. And Coulson nails it right off the bat, DK Metcalf. I immediately thought of DK Metcalf when Mike Vrabel said, we want guys who want to be here. We want guys who have interest in playing here, who want to be here. I see AJ, I see Kendrick Bourne, I see AJ, so a couple people saying AJ Brown. I thought of DK Metcalf. Now, what's interesting, I think Mr. Snoopy, Ian, Marilyn, I think they're looking at that comment on the other side. And what I mean by that is Vrabel bringing guys here who actually want to be in New England. My guess, and I could be wrong, you guys can let me know, we want guys who want to be here. My guess is Marilyn and Ian and Mr. Snoopy are saying Kendrick Bourne wants to be here. AJ Brown wants to be here. So they looked at it and said, we want guys who want to be here. Those guys want to be here. So those guys are the kind of guys they're going to bring in. I looked at it as him saying, we want people who want to be here. So whoever doesn't want to be here, we're not interested. So you can throw out all of these names who could be on the field better than some of the guys we have, like a DK Metcalf. But DK Metcalf goes out there publicly, questioning whether or not he'd play in Massachusetts. That's what I thought of. It's interesting, right? It works both ways. I do think it's a slippery slope, though, because inevitably you have to sell guys, right? Like, did Milton Williams want to play here? Did he really want to play here, or did the Patriots offer him the best contract, right? So there's a little bit of fun there. You have to pay the guys to bring them in. So that's part of the story. It's not all, kumbaya. They all just want to come to New England. I don't think Robert Spillane woke up and called the Patriots and said, can you guys sign me? You got to make the money work. But that's what I thought of when Vrabel said it. Vrabel took the questions, right? Did you notice that? Robert Kraft did not take any questions. Elliott Wolf did not take any questions. Vrabel took the questions. He's in charge, just like we've been talking about for months. Day one, when he got the job, we said, he's in charge. This is his program. And the guy that answers the questions at those press conferences is the guy that's at the top. It's the guy that's making the decisions, because it's the profile of those players that fit with Mike Vrabel. That's why you're bringing them in. So if anybody was still being stubborn or wondering who had the final say, the fact that Vrabel took the questions should tell us what we already knew here on this podcast, that Vrabel is leading this show. And again, we've said that since day one. Lots of really good quotes. Some of my other favorite quotes. Milton Williams saying, hard work will never betray you in anything. Love that. Here's one more from Williams. They know what I bring to the table: physicality, toughness, determination. I thrive on people telling me that I can't do something. Bring it on. I mean, Milton Williams, chip on the shoulder. He hears people saying that he's not a full-time player. He hears people saying that the Eagles, Jalen Carter and Josh Sweat and the Eagles' talent on defense is why Milton Williams was better last year. He hears all of that, and he wants to prove everybody wrong. He wants to play more football. He's going to play more football, and he wants to prove that, no, I am really good. And yes, those guys around me are really good too in Philly, but I am really good. And that came across to me when Milton was talking. He sounds like a very motivated guy. He wants to prove to everybody he is a full-time player. He's an impact dude. We got one more from Morgan Moses. I already said that one. Coach Vrabel, you don't need a pitch. Something else that stood out to me. Mike Vrabel was asked about Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis and how they would deploy those guys. Some were wondering, would Vrabel and Terrell Williams play zone? Would they play more zone than we're used to seeing? Would they play a lot of man? What would they do? When they signed Carlton Davis, we found out on Monday during the Marathon live stream, I mentioned that, hey, now you got Gonzalez, you've got Carlton Davis, man coverage on the outside. Just let those guys go to work. And that's precisely what Vrabel said. Vrabel was asked about Gonzalez and Davis and their fit, and he said, quote, hopefully we could just play cat coverage. You got that cat, I got this cat, and we can just go to work. So Vrabel telling us they're going to play a lot of man coverage. And when Vrabel was in Tennessee from 2018 to 2023, Tennessee was a top 10 team in man coverage rate. So they played a lot of man coverage in Tennessee with Vrabel. So with Gonzalez and Davis, you could just imagine they're going to play a lot of man coverage in 2025. They're going to let Gonzalez have a guy. They're going to let Carlton Davis have a guy. And they're going to say, stick with them, which I love. I love it. You've got two really good corners. You've got one of the best corners in football in Christian Gonzalez. Let them travel with the best receiver. Let Gonzalez lock up number one. Let Carlton Davis lock up number two, and then go to work. I absolutely loved hearing Mike Vrabel say that. Carlos Lopez on Twitter posted this. Carlton Davis allowed the 7th lowest completion percentage in man coverage last season. That's next gen stats. So Carlton Davis allowed the 7th lowest completion percentage as the nearest defender in man coverage. Christian Gonzalez allowed the 3rd lowest completion percentage as the nearest overall defender last season. So my goodness gracious, right? You've got two bona fide outside corners who are both really good at man coverage. Lock them up. Colson, $5 super chat. Thank you, Colson. What's next step in the search for wide receiver one? Got to assume it's drafting Hunter, who I'm not 100% sold on. Was really hoping for a vet. I think we're all hoping for a vet. What options do you have? You've got to hope that T. Higgins and the Cincinnati thing goes off the rails. Mike Garafolo on a podcast said this week that, if Cincinnati signs Trey Hendrickson, he thinks T. Higgins is gone. And it certainly sounds like T. Higgins is going to want more money than Cincinnati's comfortable with. And that was before the DK Metcalf contract. After the DK Metcalf contract, I think Higgins can ask Cincy for, $35 million a year. DK is making $33 million a year on that extension. So T. Higgins has to be looking at DK Metcalf. And with Jamar Chase, Cincinnati came out and said, we're going to pay Jamar Chase as the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. And now you have Myles Garrett signing a deal that pays him $40 million a year. So now all of a sudden, Cincinnati could have signed T. Higgins last offseason for $22 million a year, $23 million, whatever it was, right? They could have probably got him for $20 million a year. Now they might have to pay $35 million a year. If they got Jamar Chase done earlier than Justin Jefferson, they could have paid Jamar Chase $35 million a year. Now they're looking at probably paying Chase $43 million a year. Terrible management by Cincinnati. So now, I still have T. Higgins as a possibility, not a probability, but I still have him as a possibility. And then you got to hope that A.J. Brown wants out, right? Maybe A.J. Brown wants out of Philadelphia. I think that's unlikely. As far as Travis Hunter, I think Travis Hunter has the potential to be a lead receiver. He's not going to be an outside guy. He's not an X. But I do think that he has the talent. He has the potential to be a lead receiver. I think he's a guy that can catch 85, 90 balls a year. I compare him to Devontae Smith. He's got incredible hands. He's got to sharpen his route running. But remember, when he was at Colorado, he's playing full-time both positions. So he wasn't able to fully invest in wide receiver. If he fully invests at the wide receiver position, I think he has all the talent to be a guy that can catch you 85 to 90 balls. Maybe not in his rookie season, but eventually get there within, by year 2, year 3. All right. One final thing I want to talk about here. The press conference yesterday. And I know some people had issue with the press conference. Some people were wondering, why? Why was there a press conference? Why was Robert Kraft there? Honestly, I find all of that to be a nothing burger. A big, fat nothing burger. I don't get it. I have zero issue with the press conference that happened yesterday. 0.0. It's good public relations. You want to sell the fans and get the fans excited. You also want to send a message to other players in the league, right? You want to sell Mike Vrabel. You're selling your program. When you have back-to-back 4-win seasons and you bring in some talented players that have character and you have guys that are culture fits and they're going to say the right things and they're going to go out there and pump the tires of Mike Vrabel, that's what you do. You're trying to build excitement around this program. You can't do it based on last season. You can't do it based on 2023. I have no problem with the press conference. This is what teams do. This is what teams do, not just in football, but across all sports. When the Celtics make a big signing or a big trade, what do? They hold a press conference. When they brought in Porzingis, when they brought in Holiday, they have press conferences when they sign big extensions with their own players like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And who is at those press conferences? The owner, the GM, and the head coach. So this is not anything that's unusual around professional sports. Now, it's unusual here with the Patriots, but why is that? Because of Bill Belichick. Belichick would not want to do what they did yesterday, okay? So Belichick is now out of the program, folks. And why did they not do that last year? Because the biggest money they spent were on guys that were already on the team. Are you going to pull Mike Onwenu from what he's doing and make this grandiose thing, right? So, I don't have any issue. Good PR. And by the way, if you're a team that's getting hammered like the Patriots have been hammered, and most of the time, justifiably so, but if you've been getting hammered, and if people have been screaming from the mountaintops that you don't spend money and that you need to spend money, then when you spend the money, you're going to go out there and counter those narratives, right? Because you want to spin it towards your way. So I don't know why the media has an issue with teams trying to spin things when the media spins things all the time. Hypocritical. It's the game. Teams do it. The media does it. Everybody does it. So it's silly to me to make a big deal about it. It's nothing new. It happens all the time. It's happened here in Boston a bunch. It's not the end of the world. Who cares? And by the way, I understand the history of the spending. But when you look at what this team has done recently, in 2021, they spent money. Last year, they spent money. This offseason, they've spent money. So what is that? 3 out of the last 5 years or so that this team has spent a lot of money. I know going back to 94 and all that stuff, but it's not like they didn't spend money last offseason. It's not like they didn't spend money in 2021. Again, the reason why you have a press conference yesterday, I think, is because Bill Belichick is no longer here. And so Belichick's not going to walk through the hallways and say, we're not having a press conference. He's not here anymore to do that. So I didn't find it to be a big deal. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. I appreciate every single one of you who support this program, support this live stream, support the podcast. Again, like, comment, and subscribe. That's what helps us out. That's what builds this community. 6,500 subscribers is the goal by the first night of the draft. Everybody enjoy your weekend. I got to go to the bar with the missus. So until next time, this is Everything Pats, a New England Patriots podcast.